I'm not inclined to make mountains out of molehills. As a child, my history teacher described me as silent in the extreme. I didn't know what it meant, so later at home I looked it up and found that it meant restraint and was a little talkative. This is largely true today. In fact, at work, I am known, or rather was known, as Laconic Lewis because my name is Lewis Porter. I earned a degree in business administration, and my first job was at Arthur Long Associates, working with Arthur Long himself, who founded the company 30 years ago. While I wasn't exactly what you would call his right-hand man, I was certainly in the top tier of his management team. After being there for 3 years, I met Penny Lane, who worked in the marketing department. Yes, her father, Arnold Lane, was a Beatles fanatic and a bit of an idiot, at least in my opinion. We hit it off, fell in love, and got married. We bought a 3-bedroom apartment in a fairly decent part of our city, not far from our company's offices. While Penny wasn't exactly my first girlfriend, she was the first woman I truly felt comfortable with. Am I quiet and shy? Probably looking back on my life. But with her, I felt open. We talked late into the night many times, talking about having children and thinking about buying a 4-bedroom detached house in an up-and-coming part of town. Obviously, I loved Penny, but as it turned out, Penny no longer loved me. I wonder if she ever loved, but she didn't have the decency to tell me about it. How did I know about this? I will tell you. Arthur has always been interested in the company attending trade shows, from the early days when he would pose as a visitor and wander around the trade shows meeting people, making business contacts, and avoiding being thrown out by security, to the present day with Arthur Long Associates' often sponsored exhibitions. There was talk of a new exhibition in Cardiff, the capital of Wales, which he wanted to take part in, so he asked me to visit the site and talk to the organizers and the Welsh Government Business Development Officer. In fact, the last meeting was cancelled because the organizer was called to a meeting at the Welsh Government Office in Holyhead, which was at the other end of Wales, at the very top. As a result, I packed my bags, checked out of the hotel a day early, and was soon on my way to our home in the English counties. I sent Penny a text message telling her about the change in my plans, but I didn't know if she read it. Once I got back to our office, I had to go into the room where we kept our presentation materials and equipment to put some things away. And while I was there, I found out that my marriage had ended quite a long time ago, but no one bothered to inform me of this fact. The storage facility was a large basement area and was designed like a warehouse with different areas to store various exhibition materials, from flyers to trade displays, all of which were hidden away in an alphanumeric system. As luck would have it, I was at the far end of the room, around the corner, in Z9. 2 of my colleagues arrived shortly after me, and they were about A2. They started talking, and their words destroyed my marriage. Because of the cave, figurative nature of the room, the sound of their voices was heard very well. Have you heard anything else about Penny Porter and that idiot Dave Rogers? No. What's new now? Turns out Dave was due to travel to Cardiff to check out the new trade show at the Motorpoint Arena in Cardiff. But he turned to Arthur and said, "Why not send Porter? That way he will be out of the way of what I have in mind." Wow! Was he that arrogant? Insolent bastard? I don't know why Arthur puts up with this. And he had to know what Dave meant to keep a good eye on Penny Porter. In fact, all this is due to nepotism. You see, Dave has something that the poor man will never have, Louisa Porter. Dave's mom is Arthur's little sister, so he gets away with some crap that no one else could get away with. Yes, that makes sense, explains Dave's seemingly charmed life. I sympathize with Lewis. The poor guy has done a great job for Arthur over the years, and as a reward, instead of the board seat he might have expected, Arthur sends him on a wild goose chase while allowing his damn nephew to have Lewis's wife. Disgusting, isn't it? Do not say. I've been thinking about how to anonymously warn Lewis, but it's not easy. I can't let this come back to Arthur or I'll lose my job, and with this damn mortgage we've taken on and the costs of our 2 kids, I just don't dare take the risk. Yes, I understand what you mean. I'm actually in the same boat. Please give me this box. That. They've been doing this for at least a few months. and Lewis hasn't noticed anything, or at least he hasn't done anything about it. Maybe he knows, but either doesn't mind, or like everyone else here, is too scared to say anything. After all, there are rumors that Arthur is considering promoting Lewis to the board, so rocking the boat at this point wouldn't be a good move. No, I believe that Lewis has no chance. Who knows that his wife is having an affair? In fact, almost everyone in the company, anyone in the top tier, is definitely all C-level management staff. Maybe a few others too. Maybe. Well, you know how rumors spread. Anyway, is it true that Penny is going to divorce the poor guy and marry Dave? I heard it too, although I don't know if this is 100% true. They left the room having done their job and at the same time destroyed my marriage. I didn't even recognize their voices. I finished putting my things away and decided to leave the building. It turned out that everything I thought was wrong. The love of my life and my wife was neither the love of my life nor my real wife. My boss, friend, and mentor was truly a vile piece of crap, and my career at Arthur Long Associates was nothing like I thought it would be. In fact, it was all over. My colleagues, whom I thought I could trust, were clearly not worthy of my spit, let alone my trust. In a matter of minutes, I lost everything that was dear to me. My wife, my future children, my home, and my job. Both my parents died before I met Penny. I was the only child, which is why losing Penny was such a big deal for me. It was like that song from Donkey many years ago. You are everything to me, the sweetest song I could sing. But alas, not now. I wanted to tell someone, but who? In fact, since I was back a day early, I didn't see anyone who might recognize me, so I could run away from work and try to figure out how to deal with this shitstorm. I booked a room at a local Premier Inn and Googled a good divorce lawyer. Find a better one before this bitch does. Luckily, I was able to book a Zoom appointment almost immediately. There was only one local law firm, Pleasant and Pleasant, that offered this service, so I went with them, and spoke with one of their matrimonial services, Ms. Jane Pleasant. I explained to Miss Pleasant everything I knew. She took notes, looked at me through the screen, and asked, "What do you want, Mr. Porter?" "I want to divorce her for adultery." "But don't we need proof? Hire a private detective and all that?" In the old days, long before my father was born, the only way to prove adultery was to catch the guilty couple in the act through independent witnesses, photographs, etc. Hiring a private investigator is an option, but they are limited by laws governing collection data. Email interception has always been illegal, and privacy laws have been strengthened to prohibit phone tapping, email hacking, and the like. We use a local detective, a former policeman. His name is Jeff Lithgow, and he runs a company called Detective Investigations. If you want, we can do all this for you. He won't do anything questionable or illegal. But if evidence is found, Jeff will provide it. Let's say it will not be cheap, his fees and ours. But as someone once said, what price can you put on peace of mind? I agreed with her, but I still needed to know how much I would have to fork out. I'll email you the cost of filing for divorce, but don't worry, we'll sort it out for you. Which is $600 plus. Jeff's fees will probably be $1,000, and our costs will start at $5,000 sterling as our first tranche, but I will keep you informed of any possible additional charges. However, we are a family-owned law firm, and strive to keep our fees reasonable. Do you think I'll need a detective? Well, she paused for a moment, then nodded her head. Yes, I would advise you to hire Jeff. We've been working with Jeff since he left the police force to start his own agency, and he's very, very good. Unless your wife suddenly feels remorse and says, "Yes, honey, I had sex with Tom, Dick, and Harry. I agree to your terms of divorce. Otherwise, you will need Jeff's expert help. By the way, do you have any idea who she's having an affair with? If yes, how did you know?" I told her about the conversation I overheard. It was nice to be able to tell someone what I had learned. "That's good enough evidence to start with," she said. "However, you will need more evidence if you want to go for a divorce on grounds of adultery, and Jeff can hopefully gather the evidence you need. However, there are other points that you will need to consider. You almost certainly won't want to continue working for your employer in these circumstances, so I would consider making a constructive dismissal claim. We're a full-service law firm, so we can handle that side of things. I will forward your details to our labor law department, and if I were you, I would start building a business right now. Contact your doctor and get as much sick leave as possible for something like PTSD. I'll start filing the divorce papers. If you decide to reconcile with your wife, we can easily withdraw the claim. Is there reconciliation in the future? I thought for a couple of seconds before answering, no, not a chance. If what these guys said is true, she wants to divorce me and marry Dave Rogers, and I don't see any possibility of reconciliation. She nodded and said, yes, I can understand that. Also, I'll forward your details to Jeff so he can get started. After we finished talking, I called my private medical service and was able to book a video appointment almost immediately. They emailed me a 3-month sick note due to PTSD due to a hostile work environment and psychological issues. I also received a prescription for paroxetine for my PTSD. I sent my sick leave to my employer's human resources department. I decided to take the bull by the horns and call Penny. Hello, she answered the call. Was it just me, or was there really suspicion in her voice? How are you, Lewis? Are you planning to return tomorrow? In fact, I have already returned to the city. When I arrived at the office, I overheard a conversation between 2 random colleagues. They were talking about you and Dave Rogers. It turns out that Rogers is Arthur's nephew. Is it true that you and Rogers are in a relationship? She gasped and asked, what did you hear? That you have had a sexual relationship with him for many months? And that you are going to divorce me and marry him? This is true? She paused before answering. I wish this didn't happen, Lewis. I wanted to tell you this myself, discreetly, with love. I still have feelings for you, but I love Dave more. I'm sorry, but that's the way it is. Do you understand that the whole situation is so complicated that I will have to leave the company? Oh, no. Why? Because all my management colleagues know, and apparently Dave got his fucking Uncle Arthur to send me to Cardiff instead of him so he could spend time with you having sex. Did you know about this? No, Lewis, I didn't know. And if that's the case, well, I'll have to talk to Dave. Everything that happens between him and me should not concern you, humiliate you in this way. This was wrong. Everyone knows that Rogers asked his uncle to get me out of the way so he could fuck you. How many times has this happened? Was there one incident in Cardiff, or has this happened other times? I don't think so. It was obvious that she was, but Penny didn't want me to know what a fallen woman she was. Will you come home? No, I will not come. I'm currently in a hotel and will soon find something more permanent. I interrupted the conversation. What to do? Get drunk? Why? What did my mind and body do to make me punish them for what my unfaithful wife, Penny, did? I went to the hotel bar, ate a fairly reasonable hamburger, drank 3 pints of Dogpunk IPA, and retired for the night. The next morning, I called a friend who owned several apartment buildings in our city. He agreed to meet for a cup of coffee and made me an offer I couldn't refuse. He offered me a modest furnished 2-bedroom apartment and a job as a building manager. We signed an agreement, I received the keys, and moved in that evening. I went to my former home in the afternoon. Luckily, Penny was either at work or cheating on me with Dave, so I was able to get everything I needed from home: passport, documents, clothes, etc. I felt depressed but managed to overcome it by consulting my private doctor. I long ago dismissed Arthur Long Associates as a bad job. I have to say that the investigator the lawyers recommended was pretty darn good. He got photographs of these bastards together, and he got sworn statements from people who knew about the matter. It seemed Dave Rogers had made quite a few enemies within the company who were more than willing to take revenge on him. In fact, I was wondering if my 2 anonymous informants realized that I was in the room and were deliberately talking about this affair to give me a clue. I guess I'll never know the truth, but I will always be grateful to them. I decided to get tested for STDs, but fortunately everything was clear. The divorce took place, and my action for constructive dismissal was carried out through the UK's employment tribunal system. This system is nowhere near as complex as the standard UK courts. They tend to be more flexible. For example, the Labour judge, although he or she is a judge, never wears wigs and gowns. My law office introduced me to one of their labor law experts. She wasn't a lawyer, she was an executive lawyer named Karis Morgan. She was Elf, as her name implied. In fact, she looked like a young Ruth Madoc, ever since she played Gladys Pugh in High Says. Come on. She grinned and said, I know what you're thinking, and although we are not closely related, Ruth Madoc is my relative. She calmed me down, prepared me for what would happen in court. What she couldn't prepare me for was Arthur's representative making a complete fool of himself. He entered the room dressed in full lawyer's robes and a wig. I swear there was a faint smell of mothballs coming from him when he walked in. Judge Labor Litigation Mary Patrick's. This was not amusing. I assume you represent Arthur Long Associates. He bowed and said, Yes, Your Honor. I'm not Your Honor. This is a tribunal, not a court. And wigs and robes are not ordinary clothing here. Please take off your wig. As you say. He took off his wig. Karis whispered to me, Oh, he didn't like it. He's clearly irritated because he thought he could use his status as a lawyer to intimidate us, mere mortals. I won't bore you with the details. I'm quiet, remember? But things went very badly for Arthur Long's partners. Mary Patrick's agreed that if a company owner not only knew that his nephew was having an affair with a coworker, but actually condoned and abetted the affair by arranging for the husband to be sent in his nephew's place so that the nephew could date a married woman, that meant that the relationship between employee and employer has become irretrievably damaged and that this constitutes constructive dismissal. The payout I received was $80,000, although I also received money for dismissal plus vacation pay. The industry we were in was small, although lucrative, and word soon spread about what had happened. It wasn't me. Honesty, remember, I'm quite right. In the end, despite his sister's protests, Arthur fired his nephew. It was generally thought that this was too little, too late. He lost several senior employees because they realized that if he conspired with his nephew to allow him to screw over a member of the executive team, then they couldn't count on him. The divorce went pretty quickly. Jeff's company evidence and the evidence used for constructive dismissal was also presented in the divorce case. It was a standard 50-50 split. I felt annoyed that Penny was essentially capitalizing on the fact that she was a cheater, but I was freed from her, so from that point of view, it was worth it. I started a home-based consulting company and took on a few of Arthur's clients, so that was good. After the money from the tribunal case was transferred to my bank account, I decided to work up my courage and called Karis and asked her to meet and have a drink. To my joy, she agreed. She looked great and surprised me, but in a good way, by ordering a pint of Brains SA, a beer from South Wales. I had my usual pint of Dog Punk IPA, but nothing more. Yes, I'm silent, but not stupid. We chatted while we drank, and it turned out that she was born in a small town in mid-Wales, which was actually very close to where my grandparents farmed. She took my hand, looked me in the eyes, and said, Look, I knew there was something special about you. You're a Welshman undercover. We both laughed at her joke. I fell in love with her, and not just because she looked like Ruth Madoc. We dated over the next few weeks, going to the movies, drinking, restaurants. I invited her to my house for dinner, which I prepared. Over the meal, after drinking a glass of Welsh vineyard wine, I took her hand and told her how I was developing feelings for her. She squeezed my hand, smiled, and said breathlessly, What do you think we should do about it then? She looked at my bedroom door. Well, it certainly happened faster than I even dared hope. I nodded, smiled, and went forward. Yes, we made love. As cliché as it may sound, I felt a deeper, more loving connection with Karis than I ever felt with Penny during our dating and marriage. In a moment of self-realization, I realized that it was because Penny was never as in love with me as I was with her. Otherwise, she would never have been able to move on from me to Dave Rogers. The courtship between me and Karis was slow, warm, and loving. It found love in the end, with a Welsh fireball. Did we like each other because we were both Welsh? Yes. As stupid as it may sound, I think there is some truth to it. After a year of dating, we got married and were thinking about having children. Karis is teaching me Welsh, which is a long but fun process. We moved to mid-Wales. She entered into a partnership with a firm of solicitors in Machynlleth, and I continue to consult from our 4-bedroom house, which is near the town center. Oh, talk of having kids. This led to a conversation about what paint to buy for the nursery. It's been 2 months at this point, and we couldn't be happier. Penny and Dave got married. I don't know, and I don't really care. Taciturn. It's me. Thanks, Penny. Subscribe to our channel so that your second chaff doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think about listening to the next one.